Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you're with us today. Uh, when you jump in, introduce yourself in the chat. Where are you joining from? We got a really special community guest today with us. She's a book creator ambassador, and she is going to share her knowledge today about using book creator and thinking routines. So when you get into the room, just join us in the chat. Let me make sure I can who can chat with everyone. Everyone can chat. Jump in, introduce yourself, say hi, and we will get started with today's webinar. Today we have Debbie Tannenbaum. She is a elementary school veteran. She's been around the block with elementary schools. She is a tech coach in Northern Virginia, and she blogs and is a consultant in her spare time. I don't know when any educator has spare time, but she finds a lot of it to do a lot of good work with teachers in the early elementary space, in the elementary space. She has two books, well, one book called Transform, Techie Notes to Make Learning Sticky, and she's a contributor on Amplifying Instructional Design. She's an ISTE community leader, a ISTE 20 to watch. She has all the badges. Debbie, we're so glad you're here with us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today and getting to share.
Of course. Well, I'm going to pass it on to you, and
Okay,
I will be in the chat. And so everyone get excited for Debbie.
absolutely. And if you haven't introduced yourself in the chat, I would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell me what you do and where you're from. And I'm going to go ahead and get started because I have so much to share with you today. And welcome to Unlocking Student Thinking with Thinking Routines and Book Creator. Like Katie said, this is my 26th year in education, and I am a tech coach in Fairfax County Public Schools. Um, and as Katie mentioned, I am an author of one book, Transform Techie Notes to Make Learning Sticky, and a contributing author to another one. I'm working on book number two, and it's in process. I'm also very honored to be both a book creator ambassador and a book creator trainer, excuse me. So what we're going to do today is a couple of different things. And I'm going to go back and forth from the book you're looking at right now and then the book that I'm going to be sharing with you. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that you have a chance to understand where everything is going to fall as far as our agenda. But I also want to make sure that you have a chance to really look at these resources. So we're going to start off today by talking about what thinking routines are. I would love it if in the chat you could let me know with either a one, I don't know anything about thinking routines, a two, I know a little bit, or three, I know a decent amount. With just those numbers, let me know how much you already know about thinking routines before we get started. Thank you, Joe, for adding your number in. Awesome. So we're going to start by making sure that everyone has a firm foundation of what thinking routines are. And then the beginning parts of the book I'm going to share with you today really focus on that. They focus on those teacher nodes. Then we're going to look at how to use thinking routines with Book Creator and really focus on some examples of how you can do that. As we're focusing on how to do that, it's going to explain the thinking routine, and then it's also going to show you what that template would look like. And then we're going to conclude today by trying out a thinking routine using our knowledge. The thinking routine we'll try out is a different one than the one in the book, so you're kind of getting a bonus thinking routine. So with that, I'm going to actually exit out of this book for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our book for today. So as I open up our book for today, and they do have different backgrounds, they look a little bit different. This book is called Unlocking Student Thinking. And we're going to go ahead and just get started on this. And we're going to start off by really talking about what thinking routines are. And as you look at the table of contents as the book comes up, you'll see that the first two sections I'm going to talk to you about really focus on the pedagogy behind it. And so one of the things that I think is so important when we think about thinking routines is that think about how many times you've asked a student a question and you got the response that I don't know. If you're like that, that's happened to you, it's happened to me countless times. A lot of times we're not sure where to go from there. We talk in education a lot about student discourse and about getting our students to show their thinking. However, that doesn't necessarily mean our students know how to do that. And Project Zero, which is an initiative out of Harvard's Department of Education, really leads this work. And Ron Richard, who's a leader in this, says that research has found that teachers who are successful at promoting students' thinking tend to develop, adapt, and make use of specific routines to scaffold and support student thinking. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into right now. So when we think about Project Zero, I always think about Project Zero and its thinking routines in three different ways. And that's what we're going to dig into next. The first way I'm going to and before I do that, a lot of times people see the thinking routines, and I'm going to show you where the toolbox is and all these great resources, and you're going to think, I need to try all of them. And that is not the intent here. The intent today is to have you find one or two thinking routines that you really think would be valuable to the learners you work with. This is not something that's based on age. It's not something, oh, well, I'll use this for my elementary learners or my high school learners. You're going to see that I use these with learners of all ages. So this is not like my last session where it's very specific to elementary. This is something that goes K to adult. So we really want to pick one or two, and we want to have them really look critically at what's going on. So the first way we think about them is as tools. So I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to open up Project Zero's website. And when I do that, I want you to see all of it would help if I could spell today, all of the variety in here. And you're going to get links to this later, but I want to just show you this before we get started because there's a lot here. This is the website. Like I'll also put that link in the chat for everyone if you want to have that as well while I'm looking. But you'll notice there are different types of thinking routines, and some of them are by category. And when we think about as tools, if I am trying to do a lesson where I need to introduce and explore ideas, these in front of me, these in the yellow, they're going to be really good for that. But maybe I'm doing something where I need to do perspective taking. You pick a thinking routine that's based on the type of thinking you want your students to do. Now, there are lots of different ones. There are 18 just for that purpose of introducing. So that's the first reason you would use them. The second reason is we use them is a scaffold. So many times our students can't reveal their thinking because we haven't intentionally led them through that process. And that's exactly what this does. It really asks them, and the example that's there is a chalk talk, which is one of our routines that helps us to introduce and explore ideas. It asks them to do things very step by step. So first, thinking about what ideas might come to your mind when you consider this idea. Then asking them to make connections to others. There's some of that discourse piece fit in because we start to get those ideas and then we connect to each other's ideas. And then finally, a lot of things that we ask our students to do don't allow our students to ask questions. And what I love about Project Zero is Project Zero's thinking routines asked our students to ask questions when they look at what the thinking of the group is. So that's just one example of a thinking routine and how it can be used as a scaffold. And if you have any questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to add them into the chat. I want to make sure that all of you feel free to ask those, and as I can intertwine them, I will absolutely add them in. And then lastly, the more and more we do them, they become patterns of behavior. Now, the cool thing about this is that just like when we practice anything, we start slow and we get those reps and those repetitions in, and it gets our students more and more comfortable. Now, the thing that's so cool about thinking routines is that they're very simple. A lot of times we're like we have to memorize all these steps, and that's not what these are about as well at all. They're about simplicity. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what they are. And what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears a tiny bit and talk about why book creator. I share a lot of different tools, and if you follow me on social media or on my mailing list or what on or anywhere, you'll know that Book Creator is one of my favorites. And this is why I think that it's such a great tool to use with thinking routines. First of all, our students can use the tools to truly share their thinking. Maybe they decide they want to do add an image in to share their thinking. Maybe they wanted to use text. Maybe they want to use microphone. Maybe they want to do video or photos with the camera, or maybe they want to draw their ideas. And now we even have the ability to integrate with Adobe Express and use AI and use that image generation in here as well. So many different ways that we can get our students to share their thinking. We also have the idea of media that we can also use. Our shapes can be really great resources, remembering that when you're inside of Book Creator, that you can, and I'm going to click out of the book for 1 minute just to make sure everyone knows this. And if you do, that shapes icon right here, that all of these that can be used as text boxes. So always a great way to get our students, but look at all the other shapes that are in here that we could potentially use, including thought bubbles. Let's go back in so that we can also use icons. I'm a huge proponent of icons. A lot of times, icons can help our students share their ideas in new ways that we might not think of otherwise. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about before we dig into some examples is how you can use Book Creator even further to amplify these thinking routines. So I'm going to take you from the most scaffold approach to the least scaffolded. So this depends on your learners and where they are. Collaboration is not something that we just give to learners, but it's something we have to really teach our learners how to do. And that's a whole nother session in and of itself. So the most scaffolded way that you can do this is to use turning on your settings so that your students can view each other's work. If you haven't really played with those settings, you'll see there's the gear there. Here's my gear. And if I go out into my library, and let's go out into my library so you can see, I have the ability here to change these settings to make it the way I want my students. So do I want to have collaboration? Do I want them to be able to comment? Do I want them to be able to read each other's books? So once again, that's in that settings tab. I also can, as I'm working on this, I can give them that ability to add comments. Oh, you can't see. Oh, let me fix that. I'm so sorry. Let me fix that. Hold on. Let's fix that so you guys can see what is going on. Thank you, Kim, for letting me know. Okay. Okay, hopefully, let me go back and make sure that Kim, hopefully you can see now. I'm hoping that you can see. So please let me know if you can't. So what I was showing before is that if you click on that settings tab, you should be able to see that you have all of these settings here that you can change. So you can have it so that people can read each other's books, so that they can collaborate and they can add comments. You're in control of what your students do. So hopefully that's helpful as we continue on. Oops, too far. So the least scaffolded way is the idea of using that collaboration. This is so that groups of students or all of your students can work in a collaborative book. When you do that, you can choose what your students are going to get a chance to do. So you can choose, do you want all of them in the same book, or maybe you want them in groups and you're going to have them work in groups, and that's taking that scaffolding one step further. That's up to you, and you do all of that through the settings. So as we kind of transition into to the projects and the templates and the thinking routines in general, I would love for you to share in the chat one takeaway that you have so far in our session. One aha or one takeaway as we start to dig deeper. When I think about thinking routines, I always think about it like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. and you walk in and you see all of these things you can possibly use, and you only have one plate. So we're going to go from that big plate, that big all you can eat, to that small plate. What are you going to take with you? So if you have something that you're like, that's an aha or a takeaway, please feel free to share that in the chat. Absolutely. And they can be used anywhere, which is one of the things that I really love about this. It's something you can use in math. It's something you can use in social studies and science and reading. It works anywhere. You can do it in a special. It's very, very versatile. Anybody else want to share? Kim, thank you so much for your active participation. Okay. So let's actually look at these. I'll let you continue. If you want to share, you can share in the chat, but we're going to continue on and look at these. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is a See, Think, Wonder. Now, a lot of people think of See, Think, Wonder as like a starter thinking routine. That's kind of how I think about it. This is actually one of the ones that is even inside of our templates. So as you're, looking at if you haven't played with the templates, you can always go to that media tab and click on templates. That's where you would find that. See, Think, Wonder is a very intentional routine. It helps our students slow down. Life moves so fast for our students, we don't always have that opportunity. I especially like to do this when we're using Smithsonian Learning Lab or like a museum where they're looking at artifacts, really powerful. So when we do this, the first thing our students do is they share what they see. Now, this is really hard for students because a lot of times they want to jump to what they think, but we want them to stick with what they see. These are straight out observations. Then we're going to ask them what they think and making those inferences. And then last, we ask them what questions they might have. What do they wonder? Like I said, you're going to see that parallel where we have a lot of opportunities to ask our students questions. And you'll see that there are many different ways that we can add our ideas in here. And so when you look at the format of this book, there's always going to be an introduction on the left, and on the right will be that template that you can take and use when you remix. The second one I'm going to share with you is actually one we're going to try in a little bit later, and it's called Connect Extend Challenge. Now you'll notice when you look at these, there are PDFs here. That takes you to the Thinking Routine Toolbox and more information. Connect Extend Challenge is one of my favorites. And the reason I love it is because it helps our students to connect to what they already know and put those connections together. Then it talks about how does this extend or add to what you know. And finally, what still challenges you or generates new questions. Once again, just like with the See, Think, Wonder, look at all the variety of things we can do. Now, you'll notice whenever I give you a template, I'm giving you a lot of those icons. I totally believe that using icons is important, and I want them to be there so my students know the tools that can best meet their needs. So far we've done two. We've done a See, Think, Wonder, and we've talked about a Connect, Extend challenge. So now we're going to talk about a different one. And like I said, I'm giving you lots of choices, and that way you can pick the one that best meets your learner's needs. This one is called I Used to Think, and Now I Think. This is really a great place for our students to reflect. They first think about what they thought was true, and then now they think about how that might have changed. I especially love using this one with drawing tools. I feel like it's extremely powerful. Katie's agreeing that this is one of her favorites as well. But I really like doing it with the drawing because it really enables our students to kind of represent their thoughts visually. But that's not the only way. It could be a video. It could be with their voice, with the microphone. You have many, many choices. And Katie's saying she likes it at the end of a PD session. I use this one a lot as well because it's quick and simple. This is actually my favorite thinking routine, and it is called Color Symbol Image. And I love it because it really helps our students to think divergently and share through visuals. This one all incorporates using a little bit more inside of Book Creator because they actually do need to use that inspector tool because they do need to pick a color that best represents an idea. In addition, they have to pick a symbol. Now, when I talk about symbols inside of Book Creator, I really try to get them to focus on those icons. A lot of times our students get confused between icons and images, and that's a really quick, easy distinction. If you say you're going to pick an icon for this and then you're going to pick an image for this, that's really clear. They go ahead and they add things into each of these boxes, but then they have to explain why. Great place for a quick video or a microphone. Really allows our students to share their thinking in lots and lots of different ways. And like I mentioned before, if you want more information, I've given you those links in here as well. Think Puzzle Explorer is another really great one. In Think Puzzle Explore, and you're going to see a lot of similarities in between this. We want our students to not just be problem solvers, but we want them to be problem finders. And so in this one, they first share what they think about something, but then they're also going to say what puzzles them, what questions do they have, what do they want to learn more about, and then how they could find out more. A lot of times our students expect us to have all the answers, but they have questions that they want to answer, and they also have places that they can find answers. We want to give them the tools so they can look through tools and really share all of that information together. Okay, we have two more, and these two are ones that I especially like to do at the end of a session. Um, and these are called, so these are ones that are more for synthesizing. This one's called the 4 C's. And in this one, what it has our students do is our students go through 4 different C words to kind of reflect on their learning. That first one is that connection. How does what you learned connect to what you already knew? The second one is what might challenge you about what you learned. And that's okay. We sometimes think if our students know something that there's nothing that still challenges them. It's okay if things still challenge them. That's still learning we can continue on. We also want to think about what concepts they want to hold on to and what changes they might have in their attitudes or thinking. Sometimes I'll do this where I'll have my students respond to all 4 and do one at a time. Sometimes I'll let them pick 2 and incorporate some choice in here. And you can see as we're going that I'm using those variety of tools, both in media and in the toolbar, to give my students choice, building in some of that universal design for learning when we're sharing our thoughts. The last one that I'm going to share with you is called Take Note. Take Note and the 4 C's are ones that I tend to use, like I said, at the end. With Take Note, what we're going to do is we're going to just usually pick one. Sometimes my students will pick more than one. They either are going to identify what's the most important point of what they learned, maybe something that's challenging, puzzling, or difficult to understand, or maybe a question that they like to discuss or something they found interesting. We're giving them 4 reflection questions, and then we're letting them pick one. I love this especially, and it says this in the book when we do this as a collaborative book, because not everyone's going to pick that same question. And so that gives that opportunity. So with that, I have about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to ask you right now to go ahead, and I want you to get a chance to try out a thinking routine. I thought I put the link there. Is it not showing up? Let me unlock it and double check because it is not letting me. There we go. I'm going to give you a link in the chat. And I want you to go ahead and join this library. I know oops, it would help if I copied the whole link. Let's try that one more time. Oh, the fun. But I want you to have a chance to try one out. So I'm putting that link in here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have you join me in a library. And this library is called Unlocking Student Thinking. Now, you have a couple different choices here. I've made it so when you go in, each of you can have your own copy. But that first copy is a collaborative document, so you could also try working in there. But what I want you to do is I want you to think about what we talked about, and I know we're running out of time, and think about how it connects to what we did today, connects to what you already knew, how it might extend or add to your thinking, and then also what you might still challenge you. I have this library open so that you can see each other's work as well, which is really great. So you can always have that opportunity looking at those pages to see what other people are doing as well. But I want you to take an opportunity right now to reflect. and think about that. So as you're in that reflection, thinking about which of these formats you want to use. Do you want to use the text? Do you want to use the pen, the record? Do you want to record something? Or maybe you want to use one of those media things. And I know, Katie, we are about at time. So I'm hoping that people will continue to add as I pass it back over to you. 25 minutes goes so fast.
It really does, but you were sharing such great information.
Thank you.
Do we see, did anyone put in any reflections yet?
I'm looking. I haven't
Yeah,
seen anything. I'm looking to see. Let me go back
let's
and
see.
see. Doesn't looks like people are still actively working right now.
All right, we love it. Thank you so much. I personally also love Project Zero routines, and I just love how you showed how they can be done in Book Creator. I think what elevates it is that students can respond in any of the ways that are best for them. I know you love UDL just like I do, and so I think that is really, really been a highlight showing how they can do this thing that maybe was discourse in their class, just as verbal, and now
Right.
providing students other ways to share what they know. Yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Um, I'm so glad you guys are here. I just want to give you guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, a little preview, a little sneak peek since you're here with us today of our summer campaign that is coming. We're going to be launching it. Oops, I shared the wrong thing. Shared my my screen that I was showing that on. Okay, here we go. So we're going to be launching our summer campaign next week, and we're going to give you a little sneak peek. We gave, our ambassadors a little sneak peek earlier, and we're going to have some really great resources on it. I'll put the link in the chat so you can explore and share with your friends. But we've made some resources that we hope that everyone wants to use this summer. If you're doing a summer camp, or maybe you're teaching summer school, these are some things that you can use in that space. So we have our student resources, and we have some really fun things that were created. So we have some reading journals. So if your school uses Epic or Sora, we have some resources there. If you have Sora and you have seen the Hickory Hollows reading series, we have some new reading journals that go with that. It's perfect for grades 3 through 5, even 6, actually. We also have some art projects for K-5 grades. So this is like digital art and teaching students some digital art skills. And then we also have some STEM challenge books. So a lot of these challenges can be done with everyday craft supplies that you probably have at your summer camp or your summer school. So really affordable ways to have students document their engineering thoughts in getting to work this summer. And of course, as always, our monthly journals you can be using this summer as well. So we just wanted to highlight and preview those for those of you guys who are here. We'll be starting to share out more next week. And then also on the other page is the teacher page where we have some really great authors and highlighting their books. So if you're thinking of doing a book study this summer, this can be a great place to go. We've made a PD book for every author and also all the webinars that are happening for the next month and a half. So our last webinar will be the last week of May, and then we'll take a 2-month hiatus. So if you want to join any more webinars this year, this school year, I'm going to put them in the chat where you can register for them all. Oh, yes, the awesome Kim. Glad you like them. All right, so that is all our time today. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us. You did a great
No
job.
problem.
And
I
thank you.
always love doing these.
Oh, good. And thank you everyone else for joining today. We can't wait to see what you guys create today with Book Creator. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.